One, we are focusing on paper 1 2024. We're going to use the examiner report to walk you through this paper. Now, a little suggestion here, you might have this paper out in front of you, so you can pause this video after each question so you can have a go and get some exam practice in at the same time. At the front page. Now make sure you fill this in clearly. If you are unsure of these numbers, please don't panic. The exam invigilator will be able to help you with it, and make sure that you are signing your name right there. As we move down the page, it is a 2-hour paper. Black ink is important. Your paper gets scanned in, so it is important that you do follow these instructions, which will include do not write outside the boxes on each page or on the blank pages. You will answer all these questions in the booklet. If you do need extra pages, there are pages at the back of this question booklet. Just make sure you clearly number them. If that is not enough and you need a little bit extra, you need to pop your hand up and ask the invigilator for this. Little tip, ask before you need it so you don't lose time writing. Make sure that you do all your rough work in this book and cross out anything that you do not want marked. Further information at the bottom, it is out of 80. Any questions which is worth 10 marks or more should be in continuous prose. What that means is they are essay questions, so follow good exam structure and techniques. Looking at the examiner report, here are the general comments. Now, this examiner report is published after the exam series. It does give you a bit of an insight to how the paper was answered, and generally this was an okay paper by the looks of it. Students are performing particularly well. They demonstrated good knowledge and understanding, including applied concepts, studies and theories across the questions, apart from questions 3 and 6. So we'll have a little bit of a closer look at those. It was also encouraging to see a range of developed analysis in many cases, and some students provided particularly pleasing explicit evaluation, especially on question 4. Now this is so important because looking at exam reports, generally they do say that evaluation is the weakest skill or the skill that students struggle with the most. So that's really good to see that they were able to perform quite well on the question 4 here. However, question 6 seemed to be a little bit problematic. Some students didn't attempt it, or if they did, it was quite brief, possibly because it was the last question. Timing might have been an issue, or it could have been the challenge of the question. As we start to have a look at each question, you're going to start off with question 1 and 2. Now, these are your short answer questions. These are asking you to outline 2 or 3 things, and that just means identify 2 or 3 things that you ask for and briefly explain to get the full marks available. Make it really easy for the examiner to read, so new point, new line, and read the question carefully so you fully apply it to what the question is asking. Now, with this question, most students performed well on it according to the examiner report, typically identifying that vocational education prepares students for the workforce by providing relevant skills and knowledge. Most common answers included that, and also that vocational education is an alternative to the traditional academic route, allowing some students to achieve higher. However, some responses were too general. Some stated things like, it prepares students for jobs. Now, the problem with that is that it's not explicitly linked to vocational education, because you could argue that non-vocational or your academic routes are also preparing students for the workplace. So make sure that you are being very explicit to what the question's asking. Give an example. Sometimes that helps you arrive at the mark. Now, question 2 is answered in the same way as question 1. You are identifying and briefly explaining, but this time 3 things. Now, this was a high performing question. The majority of students were able to score some marks, with a significant proportion achieving full marks, and they were able to take advantage of a wide range of reasons why parental choice may be limited. Most common were oversubscribed schools, geographical location, not living close enough where the desired school is, or the impact of your class, your status, your cultural capital on accessing the high performing schools. And these answers were well developed and demonstrated clear understanding of these factors. However, where students failed to get the full marks, they might have been a bit more vague in their answers. So they might have said myth of parentocracy without elaborating why it is limiting the parental choice or giving specific examples. So again, if you are struggling, apply an example. Sometimes you arrive at the second mark that way. As we blast through to question 3, this is your 10-mark question. You are spending 15 minutes to answer, and it is so important that you use the item. It's that important, it tells you it 3 times. Now, what you're looking for in the item is the word after the to. In this case, the problems the girls may experience as a result of relationships and processes within school. What a mouthful. Now, your 2 hooks are hook number 1, subject choice, and hook number 2, which is expressing identities in different ways, which could lead to conflict. Now, as mentioned on the examiner report, this did pose a few problems for some students. Hook number 1 was okay, talking about subject choice. And there were some excellent responses about how career guidance and societal expectations might influence girls' subject choice. These responses often pointed out that girls were guided away from male-dominated subjects such as STEM, impacting their future career opportunities. Some students provided evaluation discussing recent efforts in schools such as gender neutral policies and initiatives such as GIST and WISE, which are used to combat this. And these were encouraging more inclusive subject choices. This critical engagement demonstrated a deep understanding of this part of the topic and the ability to connect theoretical concepts to practical educational policies. Now, the second hook, which is about expressing their identities, was not as well answered. Some students mistakenly focus on boys' experiences, even though the question is specifically asking about girls. But what the examiner report does notice is that there was some effective answers. Some students explored issues like hyperheterosexual identities and the male gaze, discussing how these factors affect girls' experiences in schools and their impact on their achievement. And these responses provided a nuanced analysis of how identity expression can lead to conflict or challenges within the school environment. And I would suggest that this is a good one for you to have a bit of a practice on. As we move on to question 4, this is your 30-mark question and you have got 45 minutes to answer. And this was a beauty of a question and it saw some excellent responses. Students were engaging deeply with the Marxist perspective to answer the usefulness of the role of education. Now make sure you are reading the question more than once, and the same with the item. Use the space below it to make a brief plan. It's always noted that when students do plan their answers, they tend to be better answers, more logical, and they flow. Use the item to stimulate your thinking and connect your knowledge to it. It's there to give you clues what you can write about. Now you do need to aim for a range of explanations of what the question's asking. Support it, use studies, concepts, keywords. Make sure you link it back to the question, the usefulness of the Marxist approach. And remember, there is marks available for analysis and evaluation. And I would be critical with your evaluation. Rather than just giving an opposing views, incorporate the evaluation within your paragraphs. Because if you just do a separate opposing view paragraph, which some students might do, and they do a paragraph on functionalist, that might be classed as juxtaposition, and this does not score as high. Make sure you are ending with your conclusion and a judgment to how useful the Marxist perspective was. Now, like the examiner report said, this was a good answer, and it did provide some excellent responses. A lot of students mentioned Althusser's ISA, Bauer's and Gintis, myth of meritocracy, creating inequality, and the correspondence principle, how it Education is preparing students for the workforce in a capitalist society. The best answers demonstrated real deep analysis. They unpicked these concepts and they critically assessed their relevance and whether it's applicable to a more modern education. Even bring in postmodern criticisms. Some students discussed the myth of meritocracy and explored how it might manifest in contemporary educational practice and whether policies like the pupil premium effectively counteract these viewpoints. The best responses were focused on the usefulness in understanding the role of education today. However, a common approach was to offer a juxtaposed argument, presenting alternative perspectives, either functionalist or new right or postmodernist, alongside the Marxist perspective. Whilst this approach is not problematic, it does limit in terms of the marks awarded. It may lack a deeper connection to a critique or evaluation of the Marxist approach. Additionally, there are responses that provided general accounts of class differences or explanations for differences in achievement. While these points have potential relevance, they were presented in a way that was very general and not necessarily linked to the role of the education system, which is a central aspect of this question. So just to give you that little bit of a reminder, your paragraph should be consistent, AO1, AO2, AO3, evaluate as you go along. We get to question 5, it's the method in context, and if you know me, you know that I love the method in context question. It is 20 marks, you've got 30 minutes to answer. Now, your biggest tip that I can give you is you need to show good knowledge of the strengths and weaknesses of the method. You can get half the marks by doing that, so make sure you address the practical, ethical, theoretical, but whilst you're doing it, you have got to be applying it. You need to apply it to school context, the context in the question, what you are researching. You've got to imagine that you're doing the research. What are the problems, what are the issues that might arise? Think about the people that you're researching, who you're researching, the teachers, the pupils, parents, and even the school itself, the classroom, staff room, corridors, pupils' homes. Now, this question was more accessible than the previous years, and it showed a varying degree of understanding of overt participant observation. Many students talked about the Hawthorne effect, noting that the presence of a researcher alters the behaviour of the participants who know they're being observed. And some students were effective linking the aspects of being both a participant and overt, how this dual role can influence the research by introducing biases due to the researcher's visible presence and potential influence on the participant's behaviour. Now, some weak answers refer to observations more generally, discussing advantages and disadvantages that could apply to any type of observation. These responses will be more limited in terms of the marks awarded, as they often lacked any specifics in addressing overt and the context of studying pupil subcultures. So let's get to the best. The highest performing answers are those that can apply the advantage of aspects of overt PO to the study of pupil subcultures. For example, they applied the concept of the Hawthorne effect, more specifically in explaining how student subcultures in schools might alter their behaviour, either becoming more conformist or rebellious, perhaps due to peer pressure, knowing that they're being observed by a researcher who's visibly present, and even may present themselves as a teacher in disguise. This example effectively demonstrates the potential disadvantage of the method, highlighting the issues such as reduced authenticity of the data collected. There is also a trend of students providing accounts of issues in education research more general, e.g., getting past the gatekeeper. Now, when you do this, you've got to link it to the issue of overt participant observation and the issue of studying pupil subcultures. The strongest responses provide specific application and detailed discussion, linking relevant concepts such as gaining more Verstehen or empathy to the specific disadvantage of overt PO in the study of pupil subcultures. Weaker answers tended to rely on rote learned material without applying it to the context. made it to our final question, question 6. It is a theory and method question. It is a separate section, hence the bold heading. Make sure you've got your 2 clear paragraphs. The focus is on application of knowledge. So make sure that you are linking examples of research design and how it might be influenced by feminism. So you can refer to examples or studies that might have been influenced. There is Moly marks available for analysis, and this is gained by linking further ideas and concepts to create a deeper explanation. No marks for evaluation. Now, this question was challenging for some students. Some students struggle to understand the concept of research design as being influenced by feminism, even though this concept is explicitly referred to in the specification. Many responses discuss the impact of feminism in general terms without linking it to the aspects of research design. So what does it mean? So there are some examples of students who interpreted the question as intended. For example, feminist preference for qualitative methods and the importance of building a rapport. Many of the most successful answers refer to feminist researchers favouring qualitative approaches such as unstructured interviews to explore sensitive topics and prioritising the participant perspective. Studies such as Dobash and Dobash, research on domestic violence, were used to illustrate how feminist methodologies can provide a deeper insight into women's experiences. They discussed how these methods aim to challenge traditional power dynamics in research, which emphasises collaboration and empathy. Despite these strong examples, there are still many responses that fail to connect the feminist theoretical perspectives with the specific methodological choices, which then limited their depth and the specifics of the analysis. Turnover. At the end of the booklet, there will be a spare page. It does tell you, do not write on this page. And then remember here, there is additional pages included in the booklet that you can use if you run out of space. Make sure you are including the question number in this margin that is indicated there for you. So massive thank you for watching. Click like, share, comment, save, and check out the Teacher Sociology on TikTok because I'm doing daily updates. Enjoy.